to our channel. This is the Simon's Family Vlog, and I'm here with my two sisters.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Shalom.
I'm Addie.
And as you know, I'm Shekinah. And so I wanted to do a very interesting video with you guys. I told you guys I want to do more on conversations now on our channel. And today we're going to be talking about dating abroad.
Dating abroad.
I have my two sisters here with me because obviously we traveled all our lives and dated, as you know. We're all at a dating age. So this is going to be part one of the video where we tell our personal experience and how we feel on the particular topics. Part two, we will be having some of our friends, which are from places all around the world, so you can get kind of like an international perspective, not just like an American perspective on dating abroad. So let's jump into it, guys. We have a lot of interesting questions that you guys put up here for us. So let's start with some of the basics when it comes to when you actually decide, like, do you want to date this person or not? Let's talk a little bit about race, okay? Because people brought up
That's a good question.
race, and let's talk about it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that dating outside of your race is not just controversial in the U.S. because we do have some controversial situations about it. I think that's becoming more accepted now just because it's getting put all over TV. That's pretty much the reason why. And living abroad, I do see that a lot of people date outside of their race, so to speak. And yeah, it's kind of controversial everywhere. I used to think it was just kind of like a black and white thing, but it's not. I think everybody definitely at least at a certain point in their life, and when they were younger at least, was kind of like, I'm going to date people that are like me. And then as you get older, I think you kind of break out of that. But I still think it's kind of controversial because I do think that with race comes culture, and with culture, two different cultures come closer to clash. So
yes,
that's what I can say on it.
I agree with Addie. I experienced a lot of culture clash, even within my own race as black. Where you grew up plays a big part. So as far as race, personally, I don't really do the where you're really from. Like, I would date a white guy, I would date an Asian guy.
Right.
You know, I would date a black guy, I would date an African guy. Right. But it just has to do with, I feel like, how you understand each other.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Race is like, so when we talk about race, we're actually we're talking about black, white, Asian, like actual race, like color. Yeah. So, for me personally, because I feel like we kind of grew up abroad, we are kind of maybe a little more accepting than people back home. Right. To be honest, African Americans at home. For me, I totally understand if you're the type of person like, look, I want to date within my race. I get it. Yeah. Like, I completely get it. Being African American, black power, black empowerment, I get it. At the end of the day, for me personally, race. Someone asks, is race an issue? Yes. It's an issue. It's not a problem, but it is an issue. It doesn't have to be a bad issue, but it is an issue. And I think we can all agree on that. Race is, a big thing that plays a part of it. Like I said, we grew up abroad, so I can kind of understand, like, all races, like, where they're coming from and find, like, a common ground. But again, if you're the type of person, like, okay, I want to date inside my race, I understand.
And you're not, like, one thing about, like, dating outside of your race, like, you have to be ready. Not ready, but ready for, maybe different comments that they might not find offensive to them. Yeah. It might be offensive to them. You have to be understanding.
Exactly.
And patient.
Yes.
Okay? I even found that out with dating inside of, like, dating, outside of my country, Americans. You have to really be patient because some things you don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to jump right into that. After race is culture. And I feel like culture is even stronger than race. I honestly think culture is like you can, exactly, because in America, like, we're all Americans, right? You could be any race, but we're all Americans. We have a certain understanding. Right. But once you step outside of that, someone might be black like me, but we have a totally different culture, a totally different way of seeing things. So let's talk about cultural differences in relationships. How do you handle it? What do you think about it? Let's go.
Okay. You want me?
Culture. Yeah, let's just do it and see.
I do think that, so I think that culture clash is a really big thing, and I think it's something that happens regardless of if you came from people with the same culture or not. But it happens more and more as you split. Because I know, like, nobody thinks the same. Like, you can get married and still have family culture clash or neighborhood culture clash. You know, one person could be cool with the N-word. Like, this is, you know, cool. This is for us black people. And that person's like, that's so disrespectful. Yeah. It gets worse when one of those people are Caucasian. And they're like, either like, hell no, don't ever say that, or I'm totally down with the word. And the other person's like, It gets even worse when you move out of America, where we don't understand, like, it's either cool or it's rude, to Asia or whatnot, where they might just think it's like bad, but something that we're called just because, you know, it's a lot of different things. Because I did grow up in Thailand, where they are racist, but they see their racism differently, not necessarily as bad, just as this is what it is, it is what it is. So coming from a nation where we all get it, racism is bad, to a nation where not necessarily bad, it's just, it is what it is, you're a nigga.
Yeah.
So, you know, culture clash.
That is one big, like I said, guys, over here, growing up over here, overseas, you know, you're going to hear a lot of stuff. And it's going to piss you the hell off, but at the same time, everyone doesn't really mean it. What was the question again?
Yeah.
Culture clash.
It's like how do you deal with culture differences in a relationship?
Yeah. Okay, how I deal with cultural differences in a relationship. When I get into a relationship with someone, I'm very patient to listen to what they have to say and learn them for the first week, just to listen to them and learn, where they're coming from, and you kind of try your best. Another thing is mistakes I've made in relationships when it comes to culture is because I didn't know the person's culture, I thought they were being rude or something. And it's funny because I had a conversation with a friend that was from a country near to the guy that I dated. And I thought, oh, you're not talking to me. You're not speaking to me. You're being rude. And then I found out their culture is that they let you speak first. That's polite. And it was just twisted.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually good. Culture is existence. I would not try to just put someone's culture kind of like on the back burner, because I know that, like, when a lot of people date, like, they try to put their differences in the back burner.
Yeah.
And it's one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made dating abroad, like someone from a different culture. Culture is like, it's who you are. Like, it's part of your raising. It's what you call right from wrong. Like, culture is bigger than race. In some cases, it's bigger than religion, actually.
It's true.
It's like, it tells you, like, in detail about that person, the way they eat, the way they dress, the way they dance, like, the way they live life. Culture is huge. So if you are dating someone from another culture, I would say embrace that culture. Don't try and be too, I can't say racially biased, but don't try to be too culturally biased. Like, don't be, you can't do that. Oh, you gotta change this. Oh, you gotta change that.
Right.
It's them. You have to understand and accept that it's them. Now, when it comes to certain things, okay, like when it comes to racial bias, you have to put that aside. You gotta let it go. Yeah. It's not gonna work. You can't direct that. You can't say, oh, because you're this color or because you're that, this is how it is. No. Right. But when it comes to culture, you have to embrace someone's culture. You have to respect their culture. Americans, because, in America, we kind of have like this mainstream culture, and we have these little nit for nats on other culture. I know, like, that's just how we are, but, like, you have to respect someone else's culture. And it takes a while. Like, it's kind of hard, because it's like things that are obviously wrong or right to you are different to someone else. So it can be difficult. And again, that's your decision to be like, can I date someone with this culture? Because they think this, that. Like, you really have to think about those things.
It might not be you.
It might not be you.
I
met some people, and it was like, okay, I get it. That's just their culture. But I can't understand that.
Right.
So,
that's right.
Be honest. But if you are dating someone from another culture, just learn to embrace it instead of being like, oh, like, you don't want to tell them to face like, oh, I don't really appreciate this and that about your culture, because black culture. Like, that's me,
You know what's interesting, too? Like, quickly, what's interesting? we are Black Americans, right?
Yeah.
We have a totally different culture than normal, regular Black Americans. Like, so much different that I remember we're talking to this guy at the court that's from Philadelphia, and he was like, the whole way you all are there's nothing Black American, because we grew up in Asia. That's why you have to get to know somebody.
Yes.
Like, for who they are, like, try and dig, because the stuff that's a big deal to me, like, if someone walks in their house with their shoes on, in my house, I'll be, oh!
Yeah, because we grew up in Asian, it's against Asian culture.
Right, so patience.
Patience, understanding that person, and acceptance. So, right after we talk about race, we talk about culture, let's talk about something a little deeper. Ooh. Because there's a lot of differences when dating abroad, and one of those differences is religion. Now, you might find that in your own country as well, but how do you deal with that with someone else? Like, you know, there's a lot of religions around the world. And let's just talk a little bit about religion, spirituality, those different things.
And spirituality.
Now we're getting deeper.
Now we're getting spirituality. Okay, now we're getting deeper. That says a lot. Okay.
Religion's deep.
All right, Eddie.
What?
Me?
You want to start? I can start. Okay. So let's talk about religion. So me personally, I think this is a good topic for me because I dated someone who had a different religion than me. I'm a Christian. He was a Muslim. Or like I have a Christian background. He has a Muslim background. So for me, like in the beginning, right up front, I was kind of like, no. And like I said, this is something, again, it is completely your choice. Yes. If you're like, look, I don't want to date someone with a different religion, I agree. Like, I don't disagree. Like, I actually agree. I don't recommend you date someone with a different religion. Here's why, though. Because you just have a different worldview. You have a different perspective. It takes a lot of understanding, I would say, to be with someone with a different religion. Because you're not going to agree with them when it comes to certain things. I'm just telling you that right up front.
Right.
Okay, so why I dated a guy who had a different religion than me. So, I don't know. I guess my dad, he kind of studied religion and this and that. And he was like, oh, you got to get to know what that person actually believes. Because religion's kind of like an umbrella. Again, if that's how you see it. So for me, being raised with that kind of ideology, I was like, okay, let me understand what he thinks. And we can talk about it. Like, we can have that conversation.
Right.
However, you know, if you can't come to this is how I feel. If you can't come to a basis of, like, what you believe in, what you're going to raise your kids in, no. I don't. Like, and I know some people do, and again, if you can do it, good. But for me particularly, if you can't come to a synopsis, now, let me pass the mic. Because, like I said, for some people, it might be too much, like, dating someone with the opposite religion, so.
Yeah. Okay, so, you know, here's my honest take on dating somebody from a different religion. I do think that it's one of those, let's not call it a big red flag. Let's call it an orange flag. And it's not really a flag. It's not a flag because flags are like things you are like, wait a minute, did I catch that? No. It's one of those things you really have to discuss because I agree with what you're saying, my dad was saying. You really got to get to know that person and see what they actually believe. But you have to do that even if you're in the same religion. Yeah. Because I'm a Christian, for example. I believe that Jesus Christ died for my sins. And I know Christians who don't believe that.
It's true.
I know people who are, you know, in kin to our Abrahamic religions who don't believe that. I know people who are in kin to our Abrahamic religions that do believe that. Right. So it's really important for me to be able to, for me the Bible is my Bible. We call your Bible basically means the thing that you live by. So the Bible's my Bible. And, you know, if I'm to be with someone, I would want somebody who the Bible was their Bible as well. Who we can both say, well, let's go to the Bible and check it out. Let's go to the Bible and get better. Let's go to the Bible and get healthy. You know what I mean? That's my basis. So if I were with someone, especially for me as a woman, I want to follow my man, and that wasn't his basis. Like, we couldn't return to that. That would be hard for me. So for me, that wouldn't work. So I do think, for me, religion's one of the biggest things for me. It's just like pretty much, number one, are you a man of God? Period.
Yeah. Wow. Great. For me, okay, so I dated a Muslim guy. I think there are good things about both religions that are, that play a good part in a relationship. Let me say this, though, according to the religion is how your relationship's going to go. So, and with how they're going to see you and how the activity, example, for Muslims, I dated a Muslim guy. It's not so much that they're more abstinent, it's that the way they see things it's just different. It's a different outlook. Everything is more reserved. Everything is more, like for example, I couldn't meet his parents because I wasn't engaged. We weren't engaged. So I couldn't be his girlfriend. So it was like, be your girlfriend or not your girl. It's kind of like, so there's some things that's going to be different. I'm not saying everyone's like that, but that's just for their religion. Those are the goods and the bads. Those are like because I have dated a Muslim guy. Would I say that that's a great thing to go for when it comes to marriage? Now, when it comes to boyfriend and girlfriend, to be honest, it doesn't really matter because those are, to me, those are the times where you're just trying to figure out the person. When it comes to marriage, like when you get to that person, you're ready to get married, make sure that you can both understand, you have the same level of understanding. My ideal person, or to meet, my ideal potential person is someone who's religiously literate, which means they understand that God's God and everything else is everything else. For me, that's important. Because that's what I believe. I believe God's God. With this one God, He's the one we talk to, He's the one we live by. But I'm not quite a very religious person myself. I just believe that God's God and we do right and follow His commandments, His Bible. Alas, that's it. That's how I believe.
Yeah, and I just want to say real quick, I think like religion is one of those things you don't have to you shouldn't compromise really. I think it really depends on like how you see it. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. I think it really depends on how you see it. I don't think religion is one of those compromisable things.
Definitely.
At all.
No. Absolutely not.
I think it's one of those things. It's just honest. Like, you have to be honest when you're dating outside of your country or like what you know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because you can end up like getting caught up in like, oh, okay, it is what it is, da 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 da. But no, like you really have to do soul searching of the other person. Like you gotta do you gotta work overtime. Let's put it like that. You gotta work overtime to make sure
I work overtime.
That you're on some basis. Like I said, you have to think of things like, okay, what are we raising our kids up with? If we're doing the dual religion thing, for me personally, I wouldn't do it.
Right. Yeah.
But I know some people do it. But if you're gonna do that, which is fine, if you're gonna do it, whose religion are you? Like, what are you telling your kids? Right. Some people they're like, okay, well, I will teach my kids choice. Some people are okay, we're gonna raise our kids with no religion at all.
Right.
Some people see religion as like just an umbrella and da da da. So like it kind of depends on how you see it, and be honest about how you see it. It's not how you feel about God. Like, that's important to me. Yeah. That's big, and like I said, it's good. I know people who they were different religions. They got together. They figured out what they wanted. One converted to the other, or whatever. If you're like, okay, you have to convert to my religion, understand. I personally don't say that. I don't say that because I want to know what you believe in God. I want to know how you feel about God. I want to know where you're at with God. I don't say, okay, you're a Muslim, convert to Christianity if you want to be with me. Nah. No. I'd rather talk about it, understand it, dig into it, and then you see for yourself, hey, is this something that I want to do?
Right.
Because I'm not going to put, a standard on your faith.
Right.
Just for you could be with me. No. Like, I don't believe that.
It's just about believing in your heart. So, I mean, you can't... Words don't change.
Exactly. That's not one of my things. Like, oh, you got to do this. No.
And I can agree with both of you guys, but I can agree with Addie, a point that you made up earlier, that even within Christianity, you really need to search, guys. Because, like, I'm the type... I'm a Christian. You would say Christian, but you would ask me, what are your practices? I believe that I pray every day, every morning. Don't go to church at all. I almost don't even believe in it. I like to read the Bible and hear from God directly. You have to really get into somebody to understand what they say. That umbrella is just an umbrella. But you have to get into it and really, like Eddie said, get to know them and meet them because we're all individuals.
That's true. Even within the same religion, like, you know, you got to figure out what you want to do. Like, if you're a churchgoer, you're going to want a churchgoer.
Exactly.
You know? Or you're going to want to understand why they're not a churchgoer. You know? Like, those are different things that you have to understand. So, religion's a good topic, guys. I'm glad you guys brought up these things, but nevertheless, like she said, get to understand that person. And those are topics I would suggest going in further if you don't have the same basis of understanding. Yeah. Because there's certain stuff you might think, okay, I got this down.
Trust me.
My Christian in America is your Christian in your country. They're not. I'm trying to tell you, they're not the same. You know? You're a Muslim, but what kind of Muslim? You know? Like, they're different. There's Muslims in America, but Muslims in the UAE, different. You understand?
Totally different.
Different. Because it's everything goes in it. The religion, the culture, like all of that goes into it. So, you know, if you dated a Muslim in the States, don't expect the Muslim in the States to be like the Muslim in the UAE.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so let's move on
that's a long question.
Prejudice. Someone brought up a really good question. It's long. They said the issue of prejudice. So, okay, I'm going to go from a perspective. I'm going to answer this question from a perspective that we all have prejudice. Yeah. Because we just naturally do. Like, when you hear about a certain country, I was reading your question carefully because I wanted to, like, understand what you meant by prejudice. Like, people say, oh, I'm not prejudiced. But it says most times people who come from different countries where individuals are branded as good or bad. Right. You know? Mm-hmm. Like those countries that's like, oh, they're from this place. Right. Oh, they're from that place. So how do you deal with prejudice? If someone says, look, I'm from a particular country that you think is bad per se. Right. You know, how would you... And I'm not gonna call out countries.
I'm gonna call out a country right now. I'm gonna call out countries right now. I was in the elevator last night and it's like every time you strike in a pose, somebody walks in. You know, the moment when you turn to the mirror, you're like, Anyway, that happens, and then these two young men walk in the elevator, and you know, we're just like hi, whatever. And then they say, "Where are you from?" And they said, "Are you from Uganda?" And I said, "No, I'm from America." And their eyes lit like, "Wow, that's a nice country." And I said, "Where are you guys from?" And then they were like, "Nigeria." And I was just thinking like, I said, "Wow, that's awesome." Yeah. Because I've met so many Nigerians, but because of some of the activities that happen in their country, they seem to be branded bad. And they get a lot of different treatment all around the world because of that. Because of other people. And they almost feel bad saying, like, they wish they had another country to call out. And so I see, like, oh, you're from America. That's, like, cool. And where are you from? I'm from Nigeria. And it's, like, it's almost okay sad. But it's, like, the prejudice that you experience is in you. When you're signing a form and they're like, what race are you? And when you're white, you're like, I'm white. And when you're black, you're like, why are they asking that question? You know what I mean? Yeah. And this is the reality. Yeah, you're always asking, why are they asking that question? People who feel like there's bias against because they're male or female feel like, well, why are you asking that question? Right. So, you know, shoot, even when I go to pay for stuff, I went to do a gymnastics class, and I'm like, oh my God, it's cheap. And I'm like, are you over 18? I'm like, oh. Right. Because I would pay twice as much. So I think prejudice is a real thing. I think we all have prejudices. We are. Even if sometimes they're against ourselves. Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we see, like, even with quote-unquote class, depending on what country it is, it could be class, racism, or whatever you want to call it, we feel these inequalities. So, like, black and white people, we can say, well, white people are oppressors. And if I date a white guy, then I'm dating my oppressor. And the other way around, white people can be like, well, black people are my slaves. And if I date that, I'm dating a slave. So I see that happening in every country. It's the same thing. I know an Indian guy who was of a higher caste than another girl. He loved her, but her parents were like, you can't marry that guy because he's basically your oppressor. So it's a lot with prejudice. Prejudice is a really large topic, and it comes with a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah. Prejudice is huge. Yeah. And I would say put it aside. Yeah. For the most part. Because again, it's about the person. Mm-hmm. And when I say put it aside, I'm not talking about culture. Culture's different. Right. You know, culture, you can have an opinion on it, but it's just how it is. But prejudice, right. I personally, like, don't judge people based on what country they're from. I'm not like, what country are you from? No. Nah, I don't date those. You can't. That's just, and like I said, it could be because I'm an international kid. Right. I'm an international kid. Mm-hmm. And, you know, grew up.
We grew around a lot of
different nationalities and cultures and this and that.
And I think we kind of base people more so on their culture. And I don't mean like high or low, but we like see things because we like see like, okay, this person's like this. You know what I mean?
Right.
These type of people, and not like racist people, but literally like every racial person, but certain people, they talk like this, they act like this. These kind of, not levels, but just like, we definitely see things differently than.
Right. Then like if you would, you've never been exposed to that before.
Right.
If you haven't exposed to it before, then the prejudice might be a little more heavy. I can understand.
Right.
It's just because we grew up abroad. So like we're like you said, we see it more as like this is their culture, like this is who they are.
Right.
And it's a nice thing. Like, we kind of put out, they're not, like when people tell me Nigerians are scams. Scams.
Right.
Like, they're not scams. Like, someone might have scammed you from that country, but that doesn't mean they're all scam artists. I have a lot of beautiful Nigerian friends, so like basically my family. So, it's just all about just putting a lot of that stuff aside and just getting to know that particular person.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with a lot of things they said. They kind of like really laid it out. For me, it's pretty simple. When it comes to prejudiceness, it's between how you feel and a self-bias. You have to be careful with pre-assuming things when you come into a relationship, as far as meeting someone of interest, and especially with marriage. When you get into a girlfriend and boyfriend relationship, it seems to be more chill. But when you start dating abroad, a lot of people are looking for permanent partners. And so real things come up, real questions. The person that's in love you for who you are, you're always going to experience some level of prejudiceness.
Yeah.
Prejudiceness, right?
Yeah.
So you're always going to experience a certain level of prejudiceness. So, yeah.
So, okay, before we close, I have one more thing, guys, because I got a lot of questions from you guys, so we weren't able to cover every single thing. But one more thing. So they asked to follow up behind the question of prejudice. How do you deal with someone who comes from a particular place, country, where their social experience is quite different from yours? And how do you tend to work out these differences?
Social experience, as in like,
that's a good question.
The way that they, okay. I think that there's something called marrying your views or your ideas, your ideologies, because nobody thinks the same. I grew up in the house with 9 siblings, and we all have at least a slightly different ideology.
Yeah.
We can sit down and be like, no, and we even have different ways of seeing ourselves and other people. Like, I could be like, that's a nice person. They'd be like, no, that's a mean person. I'm like, well, where? That. I'm like, no, that's not mean. That, forever. So at the end of the day, no matter who you're getting with, obviously it's easier if it was like me and my siblings for life. Like, we agree on most things. We just kind of agree, like, pretty much, I know I can say this and the rest can be like, yeah. So when you're meeting somebody during your courting stages, you need to talk to them and find out what you guys agree on. Find out if you don't agree, don't agree. Like, not how can you agree, but how can you agree? Because I think that everybody has a basis of understanding. And I think that sometimes we just misunderstand each other, like you said, because of our social experiences. Maybe for me, having grown up abroad, being an American, you know what I mean? I might be okay with certain cultures and certain things, but some people might still be like, feel oppressed by a certain group of people and be like, oh, I hate those people. I'm like, well, have you gotten to know them? You know what I mean? So it might just take a marrying of your ideologies to really connect with that person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, that's what dating's for. Like, that's the time when you're dating, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, that's the time for you to really work on and talk about your differences. Don't be afraid to talk about your differences, which is something I wanted to say. I feel like it's easier to just be like, throw it over my shoulder, like, we'll deal with that later, but it will come up. It will come up in conversations. It will come up in your dating life. It will come up if you start to get more serious and talk about marriage and stuff like that. Like, just talking about where. Like, are you going to get married in a church, a mosque, a beach? What?
Where?
And then,
under what law?
Culture marriage is under what law? Exactly.
Yeah,
what has to be done, you know?
True.
Like, someone pulls out some sage and you're like, whoa, like where did that come from?
I'm not a sager out here.
Right. So you just have to really, when you're dating, when you're in the relationship, talk about your differences, your social experiences, and figure out if you're willing to accept that person, if you're willing or if you can.
If that works for you.
If it works for you.
That's a really...
How do you work through those differences?
Right.
I think trying to understand them, where they're coming from, and try to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Because people have different, people have different poverty experiences. When it comes to poverty, they have different experiences when it comes to, like you said, culture and traveling. They might not be a traveler. Like they might not have points of view. Like things like that. So just try to put yourself in their shoes.
Can you restate the question again?
It says, how do you understand someone who comes from a particular country where their social experiences is quite different from yours?
Okay.
And how do you intend to work out these differences?
Okay, I can really answer this. Okay, guys. So, me, I courted with or dated, however you say it these days. Majority people who are not in my same religion, or with different cultures, like totally different from how I was raised. So, wow, and our biggest issues were our social differences, because based on the households that we grew up in, and the entitlement. Okay, so I dated. Let's say I dated that time. When we talk about someone I dated that was Arabic Muslim, and it was different. Okay, and I am Christian. Simon's house, and how we are. I say Simon's house because we have our own little culture. And I grew up in Thailand, where the culture is really like, the culture is really, and we have a different culture. So we just had two different cultures, and we had a lot of differences in that way, and that's what made me say, oh, really think about it, we're different. The way I'm dressed, I'm okay with having my shoulders open. Something was shocking me. Stuff that would shock me would be disrespectful to him. Stuff that will shock him will be disrespectful to me. So it was just, you really, when it comes to that, and I would say, do not, when someone says something is offensive to them, they don't like it, try for their sake, fry it aside, and for their sake, do something to tweak it if you're going to be around them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
For their sake. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The argument is not worth it. You know what I mean? It's really not worth it. And I'm from, wherever, and the arguments is not worth it. Don't try to just change someone. First, get to know them. Second, accept them. Third, y'all can tweak stuff together. And that's how you see if you can be in a relationship, if you're willing to tweak stuff. Before you say, tweak something, meet them.
Right. So. Those are all really great points.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have so much. We didn't even get into long distance
part one, guys.
and things like that. Part one. So, what I did was, because I wanted to get all perspectives for you guys. We're all sisters. We're Americans who grew up in Asia. Very unique. So I just wanted to get all the perspectives for you guys. So I will have a panel of friends, and they're from all around the world, literally, and we will answer these questions together. You guys will understand and be able to get some perspectives. I want to close out this video by saying these are our particular opinions.
Yes.
Not to afflict on anyone, but that's just how we personally feel from our experiences. When it comes to dating, I feel like it's sensitive because of you're dating for marriage, like we're talking about dating for marriage, right? And marriage is a huge part of our lives. So I say be objective.
Yeah.
Be, I'm not saying be picky, but be picky. Be honest.
Yeah.
Be honest about who you are. Be honest about what you want.
Right.
You can get kind of caught into we have this good vibe going and this and that.
Right.
But when it comes to stuff like religion, culture, social differences, be honest about where you're going, what you want.
You do.
And, you will find someone who will fit in that. nevertheless, voila, guys. Like I said, we will do a part 2, so just stay tuned and see you soon.
Bye.